Hello and welcome to another episode of the Coffee Chat series. This week, we are expanding outside of the business bubble, and I'm going to be inviting a very special guest who graduated from mechanical engineering at UBC. We'll be exploring the topic of creating our own opportunities through our passions, and I think we can all relate to it. How do we find ourselves in a busy world, find a job that suits our needs and meets our passions?
In part one, we're going to be diving into the passion part, and we're going to be hearing from Bhargav's personal experience with UBC ThunderBikes and his design team. And in part two, we're going to be talking about connecting that passion to our professional endeavors.
With that being said, let's hop right into this episode.
Thanks for having me. I just recently graduated from UBC Mechanical Engineering, and throughout my school and throughout the later years of my high school, I've wanted to work in the automotive industry. And throughout UBC, I've worked on 3 different automotive design teams before starting my own team, UBC ThunderBikes. I saw your first episode with Katrina, and I was really interested in what you were doing with the coffee series, and I wanted to share a little bit of my experiences. So I'm glad you've had me here today.
I'm really excited to have you as well. My younger cousin is in engineering, and I wish I could give him advice, but what good is my advice to a younger engineer students? So I think it's best to have someone that's directly from the faculty share your insights on the design teams, your involvements, and also on our topic today of creating our own opportunities through our own passions. I think Bhargav here really embodies that. I actually want you to talk more about UBC ThunderBikes. You founded that club, so how did that come to be?
Good question. So UBC ThunderBikes started because I needed to get to school. In my 3rd year, it was my first time that I was going to be commuting from off campus. And I really liked the idea of having a bike to do the commute. Allows me to set my own schedule rather than working around a bus schedule or a train schedule. And I really like that. It just offers a little bit of freedom. I also really enjoy biking. However, I noticed that when I started biking to school, it was really good for the first couple of weeks, but then afterwards, I noticed that I was running a little late for my 8 a.m. classes, and it was just difficult to stay on track. The other alternative was me getting a motorcycle, and I knew my parents were less okay with that alternative. So I started off by converting one of my bikes to an electric bike. It was really good. I would take this bike with me into my lecture halls because I was scared of getting it stolen. I've already had a couple bikes stolen in my previous years, and this caught the attention of both peers and faculty alike, and it kind of spiraled into something more than just a personal project, but more of a team design team. It came naturally. It wasn't something that I originally planned for. It wasn't I'm building this e-bike to create a design team. It was just I built this e-bike and other people were interested in what I was doing. So then it spiraled into starting a design team.
I tried biking to UBC through the highway, and it just took so long. It's never ending. So I don't know how long you did it for before you decided, okay, that's enough. I'm going to turn it into an e-bike. But how much time did you actually cut down by converting it to an e-bike? I'm curious.
Ooh. When I was biking to school, it would take me usually around the same time as if I was busing to school. And when I converted it to an e-bike, I could usually cut it a little bit shorter, at least 5 to 10 minutes shorter.
5 to 10 minutes might not sound like a lot, but it also cut down some of your effort, right?
For sure. I think that was a huge part of it. My first project, it was very simple.
Did you want to talk more about your vision with UBC ThunderBikes? Because you founded this club, so now that you've graduated, what's going to happen? Who's going to be your successor?
Good question. I wanted the team to continue even after I was done from university. So I had a succession plan laid out well before I graduated. So I founded UBC ThunderBikes in 2018, and I was the captain of the team for the first year that it was operating. And oftentimes what happens with student teams and student clubs is there's periods of strong involvement and a lot of big projects, and then after that individual that was leading the charge with that graduates, it kind of diminishes. The team kind of slows down a little bit. until someone else like takes up the mantle. And I really wanted to avoid something like that. So what I did was, after my first year, I stepped down from my like captain role, and I was able to find some really good replacements. And they were able to continue with the captain role, do a lot of the administrative tasks, and make sure the team continued. While I got to focus more on some of the technical projects as a technical officer. Now we're going on to our next captain. I'm really excited about his new plans for how he wants to take the team. There were two aspects of UBC ThunderBikes that I wanted to see. The first being the e-bikes and like promoting sustainable transportation at UBC by doing these workshops, as well as providing some resources on how to get started with building your own e-bike. And the second was building a really fast electric motorcycle. And this wasn't just so that we could like brag about like how fast we can make a bike go, but it was more to show how promising electric propulsion systems are, so that they are adopted more widely amongst the automotive industry. The first one of the e-bikes we really hit a stride with by partnering with Santa Ono this past year to build him his campus commuter. And the second one, we were originally planning on racing this year in AHRMA's Formula Lightning class, where they have a bunch of university teams race against each other to see who can build the fastest electric motorcycle. But I do think that we built some great progress, and for the following year, we have a great design foundation that we can build upon.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I think people are already starting to be more open to like e-bikes, but having a better infrastructure system in place would make it even more enticing, especially for younger millennials who are trying to get around to places but cannot afford a car because insurance is so darn expensive. So having, e-bikes can get you places faster. So for the design team, is that an engineer specific thing? Like every person or every student has to join some type of design team? Could you talk a little bit more about it? Because personally, I don't really know so much about what needs to be done in engineering. So I think it'll be really beneficial to younger students to know as well.
Great question. So it's not a requirement to join a design team, but I would highly recommend it. And I'm not the only one. I think both faculty and other students would also highly recommend joining design teams. It's an extracurricular, but I think it's very valuable in both future career prospects and also getting some of the hands-on knowledge. I think it's very unfortunate to see engineering students go through their time at UBC without actually touching a wrench. Because I think in order for you to design something, you need to have an intimate knowledge of how the system works. And it allows you to also better design for things like manufacturing. So if you're designing something that is very difficult to manufacture, you need to be able to at least do an attempt at manufacturing it so that you can make things a little bit simpler for the people that have to continue manufacturing it in the future. I would highly recommend joining a design team. It's not mandatory, but I think it's very helpful for your career prospects and the quality of engineer that you become in the future. There was one other thing that I wanted to say about design teams. Design teams are not limited to just engineering students. And that's one of the big focuses that I wanted to do at UBC ThunderBikes. I wanted it to be interdisciplinary. One of the huge downfalls with design teams, a majority of it is made up by engineering students. It sometimes leads to poor operations or like management because it's kind of like running a small business. And there's a lot of like business aspects of things like marketing. And it's very helpful to have an interdisciplinary team. The big focus last year was getting more students both in business and specifically in film for our media. It would have been really helpful to have that because all the engineers just want to do the engineering work and no one wants to do the task of actually running the team. And that's very difficult for the team to sustain and operate. So I would highly encourage students that maybe aren't in the engineering faculty to also apply to join design teams.
I think you brought up a really important point. I think all the faculties are so siloed still, even though we're starting to see more like double majors or with a minor in business. I don't think there's enough students realizing that in the real world, people have to collaborate from all sorts of different disciplines, right? Like if you're going to be working for a manufacturing company, it's not just going to be engineers operating that company. There's going to be the business admin side, and these people need to collaborate and know how to function with each other and communicate with each other. So First off, thank you for telling us more about the design team. I had no idea that people like me in a different faculty could be part of this. I've heard of New Venture Design, which is hosted by like UBC Solder, where different disciplines can come together and they create a business idea together. And the engineering students would be the ones making it, of course, like being in charge of the technical side, and then I don't know what the business students do, but I'm assuming they help with like the marketing and then reaching out to like investors potentially. And oftentimes a lot of these groups become a real startup after they graduate. So I'll probably link it down below because I think it's something worth doing more research on. I'm like approaching the end of my undergrad, so I don't think I have any more time to take this course, but I would highly recommend like younger students to get more involved, meeting more people from outside of their faculties. That is probably one of my biggest regrets in my first and second year, not trying to like go to other clubs and just being so siloed. Like, do you get that feeling too? Do you think engineering students are also really like cultish, like trying to stick together forever and not venturing out? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's very easy to get pigeonholed into your specific faculty. Yeah, I think any team or club, I think it's really important to have a healthy balance of different people with different backgrounds, and having people with different degrees is really helpful. The other thing is there's a big misconception in that you have to be doing what you're learning at school within design teams. For example, civil engineers might not think that they can join a design team that's primarily focused on computer science or like computer engineering. However, I think if they did join that and if they did get that experience, I think that would set them apart because amongst the graduating class of all civil engineers, this one student not only has civil engineering background, but they also have the background to like program, write code, and also some of the other electronics aspects of computer science. And that, like, I think that's a huge selling point to get them future employment. University is the time to explore and really find yourself. So it's quite important to diversify and also look at other avenues while you're there.
Mm-hmm. I think you brought up a really good point, and it kind of leads us to the main question that we wanted to look at is...
Sorry to leave you in suspense, but we thought this was the perfect place to end this first episode because the second part of our conversation could be a video entirely on its own. With that being said though, we hope you enjoyed learning about UBC ThunderBikes and also about the design teams at UBC. Make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode on
how can we create opportunities for ourselves while pursuing our passions. We don't always have to be following the strict curriculum that the school provides us, because that is not what's going to set us apart from all the other students that are graduating with us. It's going to be those extracurriculars outside of school that we talk about in our, job interviews, in our resume, cover letters, and all that stuff. Bhargav, you have a YouTube channel coming. Why don't you talk more about it?
Well, now that I am graduating from UBC, I am no longer going to be an active member on UBC ThunderBikes. UBC ThunderBikes was a starting point, and a lot of what I've done there, I want to take with me both in like my personal life and also in my future career endeavors. And one way I want to get started with that was like sharing some of this knowledge to the public. Like I spent a lot of time creating workshops so that we can train new recruits and get them caught up to speed so that they can design the best e-bike possible. And now I want to take this time to make these workshops public on my YouTube channel so that I could just talk about how everyone can get started. It was going to be a channel tailored towards high school students and younger university students that would like to work in the automotive industry, but need a project to get started. And I could share my ways for learning about the system and some projects that you can get started with so that you can delve into these automotive projects.
I think that is a fantastic mission that you have. And I do want to learn maybe how to convert my bike into an e-bike because I'm getting kind of lazy biking up all those hills. Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for joining this episode, Bhargav.
Just another reminder to check out Bhargav's channel, be on the lookout for the next episode, and subscribe. Bye!